Hi, welcome to the Valley View, Salem's premier TV talk show. And I'm Carol Simala.
I'm Kim Brosh.
We're the co-hosts. Today we have some special guests that we've had before, and they're from the KMUZ radio station, 88.5, Turner, Oregon. Yes, Turner has a radio station. I know you didn't know that. And so you ought to tune it in, but after the show, 88.5 FM. And the last two times you were on, you were still in the building process and fundraising and all that, and the last one was about a year ago, and here it is. A year later, you are on the air. So this is Karen Holman. We also have Dave Hammock and Tim Patterson.
How are you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Excellent.
Excellent to have you here. And so Karen, talk to us about giving birth to a radio station.
Yes.
Yes, it was the mother.
It was a lot of fun, hard work, and sometimes scary, I would say.
And a couple of miracles along the way.
Yes, exactly. So as you said, last time we were on, we were talking about getting on the air and almost getting there. And it was quite a long process, about 3 years from getting the actual construction permit, which allows you to get a license once you get everything built. And so we had done almost all of that work, and so it was December 17th of last year of 2011 that we actually were able to flip the switch and do that first broadcast over the FM airwaves. And it was an amazing day. It was a lot of fun, and at that point, we probably only had, I would say, 20 DJs that we had just lined up just moments before. There weren't a lot at that point. There was a lot of interest in people having radio shows, but we just had scattered around just a few shows here and there. And so over the last year, it's been a lot of growing pains, but also just gorgeous blossoming of the station with a lot more DJs coming in. At this point, we have around 70 active DJs, and we're filling up the schedule. There are now, just where we used to have just a few DJs scattered around, now we have just a few blank spots scattered around, so it's filling up and filling up. And over that process, it's been incredible, the diversity of the shows, the people that have been coming to us with their show ideas. It is community radio, so anyone from the community, from the whole Mid-Willamette Valley, our transmitter and tower is in Turner, but we broadcast around the whole Mid-Willamette Valley, Staten, Independence, up into Salem and Kaiser, down to Albany. And so over our coverage area, anyone who's in that area is welcome to propose a show, come on and be a DJ, volunteer with any kind of local programming they wish to do.
Well, and speaking of programming, Tim is the program director and a DJ.
And I was on the original founding board as well, so I'm still a board member. And a year ago when we got on the air, after 30 or 40 days went by, it occurred to me that we needed someone to kind of, be at the helm of the ship. And I've been a program director. I spent 25 years in commercial radio, and then was out for many years. And I got back as a volunteer because I wanted to play reggae on the air, and I got to do that. But I felt we needed to basically do a lot of house cleaning and make sure that we sounded good on the air. And that was where I spent a lot of time talking to the disc jockeys, getting some formatting and structure in place so that we actually sounded like a radio station instead of just random people showing up and you didn't know what to expect from hour to hour. It's still like that in a larger degree, but there's a structure to it. I put,
I noticed most people give some weather reports.
Yeah, so for instance, we put weather reports in there, and we will have people, do basically a break 3 or 4 times an hour to talk about station promos or events that we're doing, to do our underwriting announcements and things like that. So there's a lot of structure to what we're doing. Everyone that comes in brings pretty much their own music and their own sort of eclectic feel for what the station is. Karen, for instance, does a show called Radio Exotica. She plays a lot of island music of the 50s and 60s, lounge music and things like that. It's a fun show,
Awesome.
And she does that Friday from 10 to noon. I do reggae Mondays from 5 to 8 p.m. in the afternoon. We have a lot of variety in there, and that's really what I think is the great thing about community radio, is that there's a lot of variety, and you don't just listen to the same 600 songs over and over and over like a lot of radio stations play.
I
mean, if you
and the same people forever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right.
Certainly something to be said for that type of radio, but we're an entirely different. I've had to learn a lot, believe me, about running a community station with volunteers, and it's been quite a learning experience and a fun experience. It's been fun to see the station grow, and here we are almost to our first birthday.
Wow, that's an amazing task to coordinate that many people, 70 people. That's a big job, and they're all creative types. So they're not like accountants or something. Like.
And it's interesting because we've got, we try and do every 6 or 8 or 10 weeks do a meeting of what we call a big meeting. All the DJs get together, and probably half or 60% can actually show up to those meetings. And so a lot of the communication is we leave notes on the studio wall, we send emails out, and so just getting the communication is a really interesting challenge. And it's not always successful, but we do a pretty good job at it.
So, and you have a studio now. Your transmitter is out on a hillside up by Turner.
Correct.
But you have a studio in Salem.
In Salem, correct.
In the luxury location of the Salem Mission Mill, the historic Mission Mill.
We were in the Mission Mill.
Okay.
That was our first home, and we were lucky to be there, thanks to the Mission Mill and to a Crowling law firm who gave us space. But we signed on in December, and in February it turned out that space was needed for other things. So we have moved to the old Allied Video Production House, the old one, over on Division Street, just off of Front, not far from the A.C. Gilbert Village along the riverbank there.
Okay.
We have 1/3 of the old video production house is the new radio station. So we've been there since March 1. And it's, we loved being at the mill and would have been happy to have been there longer, but it just didn't work out. But the new space is working out pretty well, and it's like I say, we haven't been there a full year. We've been on the air a year now, and it's been a remarkable enterprise. And this new home is shaping up pretty well for us.
Now, Dave, you're the business manager?
Well, officially we call me the administrative coordinator. I'm the guy who gets to do most of the stuff it's hard to get volunteers to do. So
We are an all-volunteer station. There's no paid staff at all.
And Dave is a volunteer.
Wow,
Oh, yeah.
that's amazing.
Yes, it's definitely a labor of love, but there's a ton of administrative stuff. I mean, it's not any one given day. It's so tough, but you've got federal regulations, you've got broadcast stuff you have to deal with. There's the whole range of 501c3 reporting and accounting you have to do. So there's just a lot of activity, and a lot of it, of course, a lot of fundraising. I've had a big role in like our on-air pledge drives and things because I've been at stations before who had to do that. My background was in public radio, so I'm all too familiar with the hi, call now, so that's, I do a lot of the organizing in the background. And it's been a joy for me to see all these people come into a station going, really, I can do radio? And then, man, they'll see them bloom and blossom. It's
What's
great.
interesting to me is that probably 80 to 90% of our DJs have never been on the air before when they came to us with a show idea. We offer training, we let them go through a short process to get them hands-on to the equipment, and then they will hopefully shadow someone that's already on the air that has some experience, and then we just turn them loose.
How's
And
that
they learn
been?
as they go how radio works.
How does that work? I mean, how's it been going? Is everybody get up to
Is
bat?
anybody
Okay.
It's not perfect.
Mixed results.
It's not perfect, but you do get some really interesting, people bring their passion to it, which is really great because passion makes up for a lot of lack of skill, for instance, in running the equipment. They can learn to run the equipment, but if they have a passion for playing a certain kind of music or bringing a talk program to us, we have a number of talk programs, public affairs types of programs, we can teach them all the rest, and they will learn it as they go. And so there's certainly a learning curve, but I've been really impressed with the quality of the programs that have, it's changed over the year to where we have really high quality programs most of the time.
There's also a thing about the training that is, I think, significant, and is that individual DJs may be further along the learning curve on dealing with the equipment. But oftentimes I've been in the office up front, either in a meeting or on the phone usually, talking with an engineer or something, and I realize there's a problem in the control room. and so I'm trying to wrap up what I'm doing because there's clearly a DJ in distress. But before I can get off the phone, someone has come into the station. Another one of the DJs driving around has pulled in and run down the hall to help out their colleague.
It's happened. I've done it.
Oh yeah. But it's great. It happens a lot. And when someone's in distress, that the troops will rally and go in there and help them out.
Funny.
Yes, and people often use the term the KMUZ family because of that. Just people running to others' rescue and helping out in many different ways. So.
What's an example of a disaster that could happen on the air?
Well,
like the music doesn't play.
The control board has many pitfalls. The more options you have in a control board, every button on it is a potential mistake.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so they've got all the faders upright, but there's no sound because some button that was pressed or wasn't pressed.
The DJ forgot to put the things back exactly the way it should have been before. And so the next DJ comes in and finds it not in the way it is. And we try and police that, but you can never do it 100%. So.
Right.
So you guys let them in the studio unsupervised pretty much, or is someone there all the
once
time?
you get to be trained, you're trusted. I mean, there is no staff. I mean, there's no...
We have an agreement with every DJ. They've got to go through a series of, read a document and sign it that we will do this, and we will support them, and they will not say certain things on the air. And so there's certainly a part of the training process that gets them up to speed on what is necessary to be on the air, because we're handing over that license to every single disc jockey that goes on. And we trust them, but we also train them so that they know what to do and what not to do.
We have people in at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we have people until 11 o'clock at night, virtually every night, and a couple of nights even later, much later. So there's no way to have supervision on site, and so there's a lot of the training is technical, as you would imagine, but just as much of it is not only the FCC rules, but what are the station policies? How have we decided we will operate as a group running this station?
Like the guidelines.
Yeah.
Sounds like you've decided to do some censoring. Is that the case?
It's not censoring in as much as making sure that certain guidelines the FCC has, that Congress has set in place, and we could probably do a half-an-hour show on just that alone, that particular topic. But there are certainly words you can't say on the air, and there are a lot of things you can say here.
There are a lot of things you can say here on cable TV that we can't say over the air.
I was going to say there's no censorship here, so I was surprised
well,
to hear that.
It's not our choice, but the
airwaves.
FCC will find it.
Streaming online, there would be no censorship, but it's the public airwaves which are policed and regulated by the FCC, so that we have to adhere to those, or we could be fined or lose our license in a drastic situation.
Which I must say is quite difficult. I have a punk rock show on Wednesday nights, and to not use certain words.
There's a lot of music you can't play.
Right, a lot of the songs need to be screened. So.
And the charm of this is that there is no list. Despite the famous George Carlin comedy skit, there is no FCC list of words you cannot say. The FCC regulations talk about violating community standards. You can't be obscene or indecent. Well, what does that mean?
Well, in this community.
So you find out what it means when the FCC gives you a $7,000 fine.
Like I said, we could talk about that for half an hour. There's a lot of interesting things.
That would really hurt.
Yeah.
I wanted to find out how you go about paying royalties to the musicians. Like, how does that work?
Well, we have a little bit of an advantage in that we are a member of a national organization called the National Federation of Community Broadcasters. Because we are a member of NFCB, we are part of an agreement where for our broadcast royalties, for the royalties we pay to various of the licensing organizations, BMI, ASCAP, for the license to broadcast commercially recorded tunes over the airwaves, that is actually paid for by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, CPB.
Oh,
nice.
But then there is sound exchange.
We choose to stream our signal online so people can listen in Russia if they'd like, And we probably have some Russian listeners, so we have a Russian rock show on
sure.
Wow.
And that's a whole different set of
those
licensing.
women that got in trouble in Russia.
So we actually have to pay different fees for licensing through Sound Exchange, and we have to track every quarter. We have to track 2 weeks and write down every single song, or track every single song we play for a 2-week period every 3 months. Compile that list, and then match that up with how many people were listening. So we have to gather streaming logs, we have to gather playlist logs, and upload those every quarter.
And they're all sent to a division of NPR, who, through the national agreement between public radio, which is all of us, not just community radio, and Sound Exchange, one entity marries the playlist logs and the streaming logs, and somehow or other they calculate for the whole public radio system how many people were listening to this song every time it was played, and base the fee that is paid on that. We don't do that. We just report.
We just give them the information and they crunch the numbers. So
Great, that's what I was hoping. 'Cause
Oh,
it
yeah,
seems like
yeah.
such a big job.
Yeah.
Wow.
it's still quite a chore to compile that list.
Yeah,
and,
write that list.
and we want to stream
And to
online.
get every
And so that's our
volunteer
choice to do that.
and get every volunteer to relentlessly put in down every song, even part of a song they play during their show for this 2 weeks.
Which is also nice for the listeners. When the DJ inputs the playlist as they're doing their show, then any listener can go to the KMUZ website and click on schedule and go to a DJ show and actually see the playlists, not only the playlist for what is airing right then, but also past playlists for previous shows.
Right, that is a good thing.
Yeah, they can
Nice.
learn more about the music that's being played and find out who the artists are and things like that. So.
So if you just can't believe what you heard, you can find out what it was by going
Well,
to.
yeah, because some of the music that I've heard on there is things I've never heard anywhere else, and I really liked it, and I wondered, like, where did they get that, and what,
Yeah,
you know, who was that, and that's really nice about the public radio being so diverse.
right.
What
Person
about
has it.
an independent musician who has just made a CD? And there's no royalties for that, right?
If they haven't licensed it through BMI or ASCAP or some other licensing organization, then they own the rights and they can bring it to us, and as long as they say it's okay to play
Right,
it,
okay.
we can play
But
it.
if a musician or the group are registered with Sound Exchange or BMI or ASCAP, then theoretically some fraction of the money that's being paid into these organizations will wind their way back to them. If the individual musician is not registered with those organizations, then they're not in part of that system.
Okay, so any musician out there that wants their music to get airtime should contact one of the KMUZ DJs and say, I've got some great music
yeah, and I
for
think
your show.
that's a great thing to suggest, because they may find out that Rick's show on Tuesday night from 6 to 8 or whatever the hours are fits his kind of music. You know, so they could approach them and say, hey, I've got a CD that you might like to play on your show, and they could get some airplay out of it.
Just somebody on our schedule pretty much covers every genre, so we'll find some place we can feature your music.
Do you have Broadway musicals
yeah,
yet?
That's Carol's favorite.
I know, that's what I'm,
You should have a show.
yeah.
Yeah,
Carol
so-
needs to have a show.
Well, I suggested it, but I really haven't gotten around to do it, but
Right.
A lot of radio stations I've been associated with have had either a film and or Broadway weekly
Soundtrack,
program,
yeah.
soundtrack program.
oh, they're
But-
great for singing along.
Oh, they are. They are.
Yes.
So we have mentioned a lot of music shows, but we are also big proponents of talk shows and shows that feature local people, interviews. We don't have any local news yet, but we're hoping to get that. So one example is Melanie in the Morning. That's Tuesday mornings from